What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. This one is about a gentleman named Alex Collier. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm not positive, but Alex Collier, who is a guy in the UFO community. And I've mentioned this before on the channel. I actually used to be massively into UFOlogy, the entire UFO community, particularly with Stephen Greer. I mean, I didn't dive into every single person out there in the community, but there was a couple people that I watched all their stuff. I dove deep into it. I had read some books as well. I mean, this is back in 2014, 2015. And so this was a space that I thought I was pretty invested in. I say that with a question now, because I actually had not heard of Alex Collier until this video was sent to me. And it was sent to me once again by the great Paul Wallace, writer. So thank you for sending this over. But this video is, again, back to the reincarnation trap. It's another data point. It's another person describing or talking about the reincarnation trap, but talking about it from a completely different perspective, which I found very, very interesting. It's not from remote viewing per se. It's not from astral projection. It's not from these other accounts, but it's actually from an ET source. Now, caveat, I think one thing in this community and in this exploration, one thing that we've all become very cautious about is accepting information from outside entities, whether it be quote unquote guides or channels or ETs even, as this information could be corrupted. Because if indeed there are entities that are running this system, and we see all the lies and deception in the world as it is, it's a complete maze of lies and nonsense that I think most of us are waking up to. We come back to that phrase, as above, so below. And so we have this same idea warning us, making us wonder, hey, can these outside entities be trusted? Are they part of the system? Are they our archonic forces, etc.? So we have to be careful. But that being said, I do find it interesting that the information they're presenting in this to Alex resonates and corroborates this idea of the soul trap. And again, the reason why it's persuasive to me in this case is what we generally see through the NDEs, what we generally see through other points of contact, maybe from spirit guides, is not this presentation of the reality of the world. We get the rosy, go to the astral plane, or it's all about love, or these types of things, with completely ignoring this idea that we're potentially in a soul trap. This isn't that, right? This is actually giving, I think, what we would think right now at this point in the exploration, this point in the journey, the real story. And just by virtue of that, it's interesting, and I think it's worthwhile to explore. And the last thing I'll say is, we end up, I think, taking the stance of being paranoid almost to any external information, with good reason, I think, because how do we know what is manipulated and what is true? It's probably difficult, and that's why we have to build up our discernment. That's part of the whole point of discernment, of living a good life, of living an honest life, to try and maximize your ability to discern fact from fiction now and beyond. So it's very difficult. That being said, though, there has to be entities, well, not has to be, but likely is some entities, some communications coming through that are indeed legitimate. So perhaps this is one of them. Don't know for sure. But either way, this is fantastic food for thought, and very interesting, as it once again corroborates this narrative about the reincarnation trap that so many people have talked about. So here we go. Now, before we get into the clip, it's a relatively short clip. I wanted to go through the background of Alex Collier for folks that are unfamiliar with him, because I was unfamiliar with him. So I've extracted a bunch of information just to lay the foundation and framework of who he is and what he has done and how he claims to get his information. And then we're going to dive into the clips and we're going to talk about it. So he's a long-running UFO extraterrestrial contactee figure, best known for claiming lifelong contact with beings he called the Andromedans, or the Xenatan culture from Andromeda. His central work is Defending Sacred Ground, the Andromedan Compendium, a 1998 book catalog text associated with Alex Collier and editor Val Valerian. I've heard of Val Valerian. Described as the story of Collier's lifetime personal contact with the Zenetian culture from Andromeda. In plain English, he is one of those UFO world personalities who said he did not merely see craft, but had direct interaction with advanced extraterrestrial beings who gave him information about Earth's history, alien races, hidden control systems, human origin, spirituality, and galactic politics. His basic claim is that he was contacted from childhood onward by human-looking extraterrestrials from Andromeda. UFO circles often name two of his alleged contactees as Morani and Visayas, though the spellings vary across sources and transcripts. His official site presents him as an Andromedan contactee, author of Defending Sacred Ground, and an active webinar host. The core of his material is not just aliens exist, it's much bigger. Collier presents a whole cosmology, multiple extraterrestrial races, ancient interventions in human genetics, secret histories of Earth, hidden power structures, soul spiritual evolution. That's the one we're going to be covering today. The idea that humanity is being influenced by both benevolent and manipulative off-world forces. All of this stuff may have been groundbreaking or wild to hear back in 1998. Not so much today. I mean, most of this stuff I think resonates with everybody in this community and in this audience. We're talking about multiple extraterrestrial races. We're all very familiar with that. Even if you just listen to Stephen Greer's material and what he's seen, and even just from government whistleblowers, for sure. Ancient interventions in human genetics. We've talked about that many times. In terms, maybe not on this channel, but many people have come out and talked about that in terms of what is it? Billy Carson has talked about that so much. Anyways, I'm blanking on the names of other folks that have talked about this idea of ancient intervention in human genetics. I don't know too much about it, but like my point is, this is not material that in our world for people that watch this material that are like, oh my God, I never heard of that. We've all heard of this. Secret histories of Earth, that goes without saying. I think that obviously a lot of the megalith structures across the planet, including the pyramids, but limited to the pyramids, all have a narrative that makes absolutely no sense when you just think about basic mechanics of science and physics, how those things were put together. The way it's described makes zero sense. So of course, hidden power structures, obviously, right? The way that the world is run, I think most of us get and understand that the political structures that we see, the visible people in power, it's not how things really operate. So all this stuff, I think, resonates probably with everybody, these different areas of study from Alex Collier. Okay. Why he became known. Collier is known in UFO and exopolitics circles largely through 1990s lectures and interviews in the book Defending Sacred Ground. His interviews and lectures are still passed around heavily online, especially among people interested in contactee testimony, Andromedan lore, reptilian Draco claims, right? All stuff we're talking about, Orion conflict narratives, and galactic history material. His official site still hosts old lecture pages such as History of the Galaxy, and current posts show he continued doing live webinars and interviews into 2026. He's also currently active on YouTube. His channel is listed with roughly 141,000 subs in recent searches, pointing viewers back to his official site. Now let's get into some of the Andromedan material. The Andromedan in Collier's tellings are advanced human or human-like extraterrestrials who are spiritually and technologically far beyond modern humanity. They are usually framed as benevolent teachers or observers trying to help humanity reclaim sovereignty. Such a big word, an important word in this community. Sovereignty. Claim our sovereignty, accept our sovereignty, recognize our sovereignty. And this ultimately feels like the way out of the trap. So he says human sovereignty. Collier repeatedly emphasizes that humanity must take responsibility for itself rather than waiting for saviors, governments, religions. I mean, this resonates so much. Get out of that savior mentality. Again, my point in sharing this is to give you good background information right before we get into the video, and I think that's going to resonate with everybody. And now he's talking about on this planet in terms of saving this planet and saving what's happening, all the chaos and nonsense that's happening here. But obviously, we would probably extend that out. Maybe he would too, to not looking for a savior, but trusting within yourself, even when we pass on to the next phase of existence after this life. He talks about councils, federations, interstellar alliances, wars amongst extraterrestrial groups, and the involvement of many ET races with Earth. I don't know too much about these galactic federations or different things like this. So that's just stuff that I haven't really explored, and I don't know. I know some folks it kind of tangentially in the space talk about that stuff. I don't know too much about it. The hidden history, he claims Earth history has been manipulated or suppressed. That I believe for sure. Even just it's not has it been, it's of course it has been. We could even take the most minute examples of false flag operations and different events that are described, world events that are described differently than perhaps how they really happen. We have that old saying that winners of wars and conflicts are the ones that write history. So we don't always get the full side and scope of things. So of course there's been a hidden history, but then you can take it down to that minimal extreme all the way up to, yes, we're being lied to about past civilizations, the existence of technologies that surpassed our technologies today, that these civilizations were wiped out with a reset or otherwise. And so the question is not, has history been manipulated? I think it has been, for sure. It's just a question of to what degree. But I think many folks would also concur that it seems likely that there have been civilizations of advanced power. Why they've been suppressed, I don't know exactly, but I could posit some ideas. But either way, it feels as though that seems very, very likely. He talks about genetic manipulation, which I've already talked about, and then spiritual awakening. Now, this is interesting. He blends UFO claims with metaphysical themes, consciousness, soul growth, vibrational change, spiritual maturity, and humanity's transition into a different area. So I don't know exactly how he talks about soul growth and vibrational change. I don't believe it's going to be new age related, meaning I don't know, because I haven't looked into him deeply enough and watched a lot of his content. But my assumption is he would not fall into the new age category of, hey, life is a school and we're just growing and evolving and it's all about leveling up, because of what you're about to hear in the video that I'm going to play in a second. And then how he fits into this world. Collier belongs more to the contactee experiencer exposed politics wing of UFO culture than the nuts and bolts radar pilots military footage side. His material is closer to people like Billy Meyer. I don't know these people. George Adamski, Elena Danon, Tony Rodriguez, Michael Sala's exopolitics orbit, and David Icke's adjacent hidden history discussions than it is to official UAP hearings or Pentagon confirmed UAP cases. Of course, we know David Icke. That's what brought me into this world. So there we go. Nice little summary. Now we're going to get into the mix. This is pretty wild. So this is what he was told. And it's actually nice the way he presents it. It's very simple and makes me feel confident that there is definitely a way out. And it's not as difficult as it may seem. But without further ado, let's check it out.
That's one thing that I want to share with you. The other thing is this, and I've had a lot of questions over the years about this, but I had a couple more just in the last 2 weeks regarding this question: what happens when you die? And I have emails to get to, but folks have been really busy just trying to hold things together myself. Okay, but I'll get to your emails here in the next week. When you die, you have choices. You don't know this, but you have choices. When you leave your physical body, it is very typical for you to see yourself standing next to your body with either your loved ones or EMTs or whatever the circumstances are. And you see yourself, and then you'll hear a voice, you'll see the tunnel of light, and the voice will be calling you, or you will hear the voice telepathically telling you to come, you know. Now, as you stand there and you're looking at the tunnel of light, you have a choice. You can go up to this tunnel of light where you'll be with other loved ones that have crossed over, usually, all right? And you'll be put into a system where you are essentially caught in a reincarnational cycle, a loop. Or you can turn around, put the tunnel of light behind you, and what you will see is the entire universe. If you choose to go to the universe instead of the tunnel of light, whatever dimension you came from when you came down here to Earth, okay, we'll keep it all present time and place. Earth, whether it was 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th density, whatever it was, if you choose the universe and you say to yourself, I wish to go home. You will return to that dimension from which you came. So if it's 5, 6, 7, or 8, you will leave here and you will go back to that dimension where I am told you'll be reunited with your soul group. Because we're multidimensional, we're in many places at once. I've never shared this information before.
This is so massive for multiple reasons. And the first one is I get so many questions all the time in the comments of, okay, well, if we don't go into the light, where do we go? We don't really know. We've heard different ideas. We've heard people theorize where you go. It's a choose your own adventure. I think Jason Giorgiani, Intuitive Underground, would say something along those same lines, but we don't really know. But the idea is to claim your sovereignty and you get to choose, not it's chosen for you. It's not laid out for you. That's the main idea. But this is one of the first times that I've heard somebody say what to say and where to go. And what to say is very important because so many people have talked about in the astral plane, even people just having astral projection experiences, thought turns into action. So you might say, well, what, you just say it like a magical phrase? It seems weird. Again, thought manifests into action. Thought manifests into reality within the astral is my understanding. So that actually makes a ton of sense. Like, where do we even say to go? You say to go home. It's so simple, but it's so profound at the same time. We're all wondering, where do we go? What do we do? How do we know where to go? Do we just wander around and be lost? It all comes back to the power of thought, the power of consciousness. And where do we go? We go home, because deep down somewhere, we know where home is. That really hit me so hard. And also what's fascinating about this is where it comes from. Again, this comes from an external source, which has to raise some red flags. Again, we don't know if the source is benevolent or malevolent. And I think he himself would claim that some entities are positive, some are negative, and we don't know who to trust. That was mentioned in that little bio that I read. So he himself would admit that. And the question is, can we trust these entities? We can, insofar as how strong is Alex Collier's own sense of discernment. I don't know. We don't know. Some folks maybe that are more expert on Alex Collier might be able to chime in on the comments. But either way, like I said, I think one of the things that's fascinating about this is it is a retelling of this darker narrative that very well may be true. I think that in some sense gives it intrinsic credibility, because most of the, I think, manipulated accounts or manipulations that are given to us present a rosy picture by design to keep us blind and keep us deaf to the reality of the situation, so that we just get sucked right back into the trap. We've heard other people say they're opening light portals, like Elizabeth April talks about opening white light portals for people that have passed over and just sending them right back in. I think it sounded like, and I'm not saying she's doing it on purpose. I don't think she knows, but some people are getting information, or I guess helping people, whether knowingly or unknowingly, right back into the trap. This is something different. This is actually giving information on how to escape. So that to me gives some credibility. Is it this simple? Is it just simply you turn around, turn away, face the other way, flip around and say, I want to go home? Maybe, but I don't know. The other thing I want to say too is what's interesting about this bridge and this connection between ETs, technology, secrets, secret history, all this stuff, and what we're mainly immersed in now with the afterlife is that, look, I used to be so fascinated by all the secrecy, by all of the power structures in the planet, the lack of equality, and the way that things are just manipulated, and it bothered me. But then ultimately, when I started researching NDEs at the beginning, I thought, well, what does it really matter? It doesn't really matter. It's this stuff happening on this planet, whether it's good or bad. Ultimately, we're all liberated at the end. We should be more concerned about what happens after than here, because people are just fighting over this nonsense. But ultimately, we're all liberated. Then we all go to this great place, and it's all for a learning process. So none of this stuff matters. Well, now we see that I think it does matter, because it's all part of the same thing. I never thought at the beginning that there was a relationship between the ETs or these other entities and what happens in the afterlife. And now it appears to be all part of the same equation. So it does matter. And I think the learning about the reality of what's happening on this planet is that much more important now that we frame it in the context of, well, it's not just part of what's happening in this very short and brief life here, but it's what's happening beyond this life, into the astral, back here in this repetitive cycle, so on and so forth. So if we want to eventually have liberation and a true choose your own adventure existence, probably as it should be, then we need to pay attention and we need to figure out the right protocols, the right mechanisms by which to exit or escape. Okay. Now we get to the second clip. And he, again, it's from a different time and a different area. I don't know exactly the timestamps of these two clips, of these two recordings, but he talks very explicitly here about a trick to rebirth. There's also some other really, really golden nuggets in this very short clip. Check it out.
Says, I heard that when we die, we should not go to the light, as it is a trick to recapture our soul to rebirth on Earth. Is that true?
Yeah, that's what I was told. Visayas was very specific. He said, you, of course, can choose to do whatever you want, but none of you ever turn around and look what's behind you. And when I asked, well, what is behind me? He said, freedom. Freedom of Earth. Freedom of the reincarnational cycle.
There it is. And again, going back to that same idea, we get sucked into the light. It makes sense. It's just like drawing a moth to a flame. You have this big light and you're just focused on it. You go, whoop, let me go right into that because that feels good. You're getting the love bombing, whatever. And he says, nobody just simply turns around. Is it that simple? You just turn around, face the rest of the universe or whatever some people call the void, who knows? Or maybe that's two different things. But you're just turning around, reorienting yourself, and then say, I wish to go home. Boom. And just like that, you zip out of this reincarnation trap and this reincarnation loop. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, guys. But this one hit me pretty hard. Once again, shout out to Paul Wallace, writer, for sending this over. Is this somebody you think I should explore more? Is this resonating with you? Or is it problematic inherently because he's being told this? But ultimately, to some extent, maybe some of the communications received have to be, or there has to be truth in some of them. And then it's just a matter of discernment, leaning on people that are getting these communications and leaning on people specifically with strong discernment that are getting these communications and putting some trust in them to be able to navigate through that maze of deception and truth. Right? And maybe he's got that discernment. I don't know. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.